we're live after we're actually live, so I'm just going to start talking right now because as soon as the bar actually goes all the way and tells me that we're live, we've been live for like 30 seconds, so I'm just going to start talking now. Hope everything sounds okay and everything's hooked up okay. I mean, it looks good from here, so hopefully it'll pop up here in a second and we'll be good to go. Oh. Alright, well the good news is that everything works. So, let me know if you can hear me okay, or if you can't hear me. I guess you can't let me know if you can't hear me unless you... Of course, if you don't have any sound, then that'd be a pretty sound inclination there that something wasn't working. Synergy raw kombucha, raspberry chia, because I like to chew what I drink. It's actually really good. Hello, Fruit, Brian, Tyler, Joe. That's tasty. Hey Bart, Mr. Hefty. STS, cool. We'll give it a second for everybody to kind of filter in here. The PBA Summer Clash just ended. I won't spoil it. I mean, I really would like to spoil it because I have a funny thing to say, but oh well. I'll get it next time. Because I don't want to ruin anything for anybody. Sound is good. All right. So miraculously, after not streaming for a month or doing really anything, I kind of hooked everything up and everything's working. So that's interesting. Fortunate. Kingpin got his phase 2 punched up. Had to test it out. Sweet, sweet. I am flying solo tonight. Mr. Shimwrecker Enterprises won a crap load of money in a tournament in South Carolina today. So, go ahead and say it. We'll hold our ears. I mean, who didn't watch the PBA Summer Clash? I mean, bowling hasn't been on forever. Who actually didn't watch the Clash? I can understand if you weren't able to watch the Clash. Sad boys. So am I going to ruin this for anybody? Am I going to ruin the Clash? Are you going to punch up the new Storm Balls? I don't know, but not yet. Those aren't ones that get automatically shipped to me. Because lower end balls aren't typically some of their bigger sellers. Even despite the success and popularity of the Hustle line, and the Electrifies represent kind of cleaning house on the hotline, which I've been saying for a year and a half needed to happen. And so with Reactor and the cores, I believe 251-030 on the Electrifies, or 029, it's in the 030 range, which is really close to the Hustles, which I believe are 253-030 or 031. So, basically the hotline kind of has their version of the Hustles now. I think that I don't know which covers are stronger. I would think that the Hustle covers are stronger than Reactor is, but we haven't seen Reactor on very low RG cores anyway for a while, so they might be... Hi, Cassie. They might be closer to the Hustles than I think, but I don't think so. The numbers are pretty similar, but I think that there is going to be enough difference there to make them worthwhile, but I definitely like the direction they went with the hotline. I just don't ever get down that low, and if I am, I'm kind of bowling on dirt, but I do like the idea of the Electrify Pearl. I think that might be something, because when I get down to bowling on dirt, I have a pin down high road tee that I use quite a bit, which is an overseas high road Pearl, and it works really well. It works really well when I'm bowling on nasty stuff, and I just don't think, because it's still, even though it's higher RG to help it down the lane, it's still R2S Pearl, and it's got enough differential to get it back up the hill. That's really the thing, that when I would be using something like a Hustle Link or like an Electrify or something like that, I'm going to be 4th, 5th arrow flinging it right. And even though the lower RG is going to help with stability, the lower friction cover is going to help with the friction response, I just don't think, I think it's going to be almost an IQ Tour type problem where it's not going to have enough wheels to get around the corner. I might still drill one and try it, but I'm probably not going to make review videos for those, or the new Hustles. Hashtag out-of-pocket expenses for balls I'm not sure that I'm going to end up using, so sorry about that. But I know that Nick Brown's going to have some videos up. Kenan McFalls is going to do a video. I'm pretty sure that Josh Shoemaker is going to have videos. I am not planning on it at this point, though. Took your advice and had my P3 punched up the same as my P2, and I love it. Thanks for the advice on just letting the cover be the difference. Yes, that's one of my favorite things to do, is especially balls that have the same core. I like, instead of, you know, drilling something like the Phase 2 one way and then drilling something like the Phase 3 a different way to kind of mitigate the fact that it's a hybrid. People tend to kind of try to make all the balls the same instead of just using the same layout and letting the cover differences stand out, which is really the point of having three different bowling balls, or having 3 different covers or 4 different covers or whatever, different covers period, on the same core. What Storm RG ball is a sleeper ball that isn't getting the looks from people that it should? My opinion is the Wild Streak. That's what I was going to say, was the Wild Streak. It's a whole lot better, and Anthony Simonson used it on the Clash tonight. If you haven't seen that, check that out. Of course, he was using it on the left side of the lane. Is the Gravity Evolve a good ball? I imagine that's what you mean by GE. My wife really likes hers. Mine was, let's see, it kind of shaped like a Sherlock and a, what's the other one? Halo Vision. It's kind of what it shaped like, and that's not necessarily the best shape for me, especially with something that hooks that much. It was kind of forward off the end of the pattern, not really forward, but it wasn't terribly continuous, and I don't usually get to use stuff that, number one, hooks that much or back ends that much for as much as it hooks. So it's just not something. And then when I get far enough left to get it down the lane, then it's a little too straight off the end of the pattern to make the angles work for me. So because I already come up the back of the ball. So anyway, what's with the funny stream name and the acronym there? If you didn't read the description, the time off from the virus and the pandemic and all the other craziness that's going on has given me a lot of time to think and kind of reset. I've said this a couple times on streams, that I've had a chance to reset. I've had a chance to kind of play with my mechanics. I've had a chance to pay a little bit more attention to my personal bowling, and kind of really put some thought into where what I want to do with the channel going forward. And it's been kind of a nice break, instead of just having ball release after trying to keep up with reviews and comparison videos and all of that stuff. I have practice on the wing a little bit. The wing is not going anywhere because it was a catastrophe. I bowled a tournament over the weekend that James and I, Mr. Shimwrecker Enterprises, will be discussing as part of kind of the new direction of the channel next Saturday night. We're going to do another live stream next Saturday night to kind of kick off what direction I want to go with the channel now. So this is basically, I've uploaded something like 425 videos, and 99.8% of them have been ball reviews, ball reaction, comparison videos, sport, essentials, sport essentials, this and that. It's been 100. It's been very nearly completely bowling ball focused. Now, the thing about bowling is, like anything else, I mean, once you get your equipment set, then that's when you actually move on and start doing things. And after a while, I keep making ball videos after ball videos and multiple comparison videos, and on the live streams, it's normally compare this ball to this ball, or that ball to that ball, or what layout should I use, or what surface should I use. And I don't want to be one of those people that gets so wrapped up in the equipment or the tool bag that you just don't ever take the next step onto something else. If there's something that you haven't learned in 425 videos, and I know that several of you probably haven't been with me that long, but we haven't really even gotten out of the starting gates. I've tried to do a few things, and because they kind of got lower view counts, I didn't really go on that direction, because view count, as you know, it's a bowling YouTube channel, and so there's a lot of time and a lot of whatever else invested into it, and at that point, being that it fills all my free time now, there has to be some kind of a return or some kind of a justification for doing all that. And so videos with lower view counts, if I try something different or I make a video and it doesn't seem to be very popular, doesn't get that big of a response, that kind of indicates to me that people aren't interested in watching it. And if you're not interested in watching it, then I should put my time and effort into something that is going to be more enjoyable for you, or something that you want to watch. And, putting up ball videos is pretty popular. But at the same time, it doesn't really get you anywhere. And bowling, unfortunately, is one of those things, sports, if you want to call it a sport, or if you want to call it a game, whatever. It's one of those things where the technical side of it, just getting the tool bag right, is so much more complicated than... So there's still a bunch of stuff you can play with golf clubs and golf balls and trying to dial that stuff in. But to compete in bowling, it's so much the equipment and surfaces and friction response and layouts and all that stuff. It's quite a bit deeper than a lot of other sports where you just take some regular tools. I mean, if you take a tool bag out to do some pretty simple things, I mean, the screwdrivers come in Phillips head and flat head, and maybe that star looking thing that's got the 6 prongs on it, and that's kind of it unless you get into really specialized stuff. But just to kind of be a 200 average bowler, everybody thinks that averaging 200 is not that big of a deal anymore. Well, it kind of is. I mean, there's most people, I think the average is like 175 or 176. And so if you're a 200 bowler, you're already quite a bit over the average. And being a 200 bowler requires a fairly solid knowledge of the game and the ability to repeat shots relatively consistently and pick up some spares. So people tend to want the bowling balls and the equipment is the easiest thing to kind of get buried in and lost in, because beyond that, without getting coaching and without working on mechanics, or really developing any kind of eye for, or any kind of, trying to figure out how I want to word this, because I'm starting to ramble now because I want to talk about something else, but I'm stuck still explaining this for some reason. But basically, I want to start to move the focus forward a little bit. I want to take some of the attention off of bowling balls, and I know that that's going to be harder videos to prep for. There are probably not going to be as many of them, and they're probably not going to get as many views. But I don't want to spam ball videos just to farm for views just so that I can tell myself or justify the time that I spend on the channel. I would rather have live streams once a week and talk about have discussions about different things and have a few different people on. I think that this is actually quite a bit more fun than me sitting in front of a computer, clicking endlessly, putting videos together, and this way I can actually talk to people, and you can talk to me instead of I put up a video and you post a comment and I get back to it in a couple days or something like that. And the endless ball comparisons, everything's kind of stagnant when we keep having the live streams and the same questions are asked by the same people. I understand that everybody's at different levels of knowledge, and even somebody like James Niffen, who is Shimwrecker Enterprises, normally on here, even when we even have technical questions that we kind of bounce off of each other. He was talking about drilling another Omega Crux and putting kind of a different layout on it to fit a specific reaction type, and he said, okay, so if I do this and this, that it should make the ball do this, right? And it's like, yeah. So even we bounce a lot of stuff off of each other, and that's what happens in the Discord. Spotify, huh? Interesting. Man, I got the whole Discord crew in here now that we're talking about this. But we have conversations on Discord all the time about, fitting bowling balls and arsenals and whatever else, but you can get quite a bit more done by spending quite a bit less money. And I'm not saying stop buying bowling balls, because it's a lot of fun to buy bowling balls, and even if you don't, I've said this before, that not everybody wants to be a pro, not everybody wants to get better, but a lot of people buy bowling balls with the impression, thinking, well, I've got to have a well-rounded arsenal, I've got to have all this stuff to be able to compete, and then if they go out there and they have a bad tournament, well, they either didn't have this surface, or they didn't have this ball, or they didn't have this layout, or something like that. And I'm hard-pressed to remember the last time that I went to a tournament, whether I knew the pattern or not, and took 6 balls and didn't have a look with something. Especially because when you know how to set up an arsenal, even if you don't know how to set up an arsenal, you should have something that's going to work. You should have something that's going to work unless there's something completely astronomically crazy going on. So I'm going to start talking about a few different things. Basically, SYGU stands for Step Your Game Up. And we're not talking getting into high-level stuff that's over anybody's head. We're talking about like some basics of actually getting out there to bowl after you've got, after you've got your bags put together. And again, I understand if you still have some questions from time to time, or if you just want to check, say, well, I was thinking about doing this. I understand I'm still going to get the ball questions. I'm still going to make review videos. I'm not going to make 10 comparison videos for every release like I used to. Yeah, but I have a gear acquisition syndrome, and I do the same thing. I love bowling balls. Bowling balls are a whole bunch of fun, and I keep collecting new stuff and overseas stuff, and I'm getting ready to order duplicates of some other stuff. I'm going to get another idol. I'm going to get an Axiom, and I will probably do a right-handed review for the Axiom, just if you were wanting to see that and didn't see that. I have a new idol Pearl waiting to be drilled. I beat the living crap out of my Promotion, so I'm probably going to drill a new one of those. Also something, I'm bowling my Friday Night League left-handed this year to allow me to be able to film videos right-handed again. So I'm still going to be working on the left-handed thing. I do want to stay a right-handed bowler, and I have been working on that. I had a pretty good practice session for at least the last 20 shots. I threw about 200 shots today, and the first 180 were absolute, complete garbage, awful, terrible, and that was a pretty miserable hour and a half where I was just kind of cussing myself up and down. for an hour and a half solid. But then the last 20 shots were, something clicked and I figured something out, and it was really pretty good. And again, with the USB-C rules about using your highest average, no matter which hand it's with, the base handicap off of, I'm a scratch bowler. Until I'm a scratch bowler left-handed, I'm not bowling tournaments. I'm not bowling any scratch leagues. I'm not whatever else. So until I feel comfortable with my game left-handed, I'm not going to start getting into anything. So it'll probably be a couple years before I do anything competitive left-handed. But there are a couple tournaments that I would go to. We had an 8-gamer with 4 people on a lane on a house shot in Kansas City last weekend, and that gets pretty rough on the right side of the lane, and it stays pretty nice on the left side the whole time. So that's probably what I'm going to do, either drier house shots or longer formats on house shots. It's going to be really beneficial to be on the left side of the lane. So those are the kind of tasty. Just added an Idle Pearl in Phase 2 to my arsenal. Next is UFO and Pitch Black. Well, that sounds like those are all fairly well spread out. Yeah, Swift Cookies, Mr. Riley Patton. Really toasty. Yeah, they got really toasty. And I bowled terrible because I was focusing more on trying to fix my wing and trying to look like a professional than actually knocking down pins. And as we're watching people like Jacob Buttriff and Brandon Novak, and then Simonson throwing a backup ball on the Clash, knocking the pins down is what matters. I don't know why I care so much what it looks like. Knocking the pins down is what matters. I didn't do that this weekend until the last 3 or 4 games. But I kind of got back to, and all this ball stuff and this equipment stuff kind of takes me out of my element too, because I get so excited about using some new toys, and then I care more about everything else but actually knocking the pins down. And so that's kind of the direction that, would it be good to try bowling left-handed? Sure. It'll teach you something. It'll be very interesting. So yeah, Sam Cooley's another weird one. Yeah, he kind of opens way up, and there's all kinds of people that do all kinds of, different things. And is the top gate an international release? Yes, all the gate balls will be international releases. So if there's anything that's gate, it'll be international. Anyhow, so we're going to move forward a little bit. We're going to talk about some of the very basics. James, like I said, James is going to be my guest next week to talk about kind of just basic things like once you get all the bowling stuff set up, and this is where your pro shop can be your greatest resource, because I'm not going to give you layout advice unless it's something like, I have a Phase 2 and I really like it. How should I drill my Phase 3? Drill it just like the Phase 2. That's a great idea, and it worked out great for Joe, I believe it was. Yes. So yeah, in that case, I'll give you very basic stuff, but not knowing, there's so many different things that go into bowling, and James is from North Carolina. He flew in to bowling Kansas City, and we bowled on the Earl Anthony pattern. We had a singles tournament on Saturday, and we had a doubles tournament on Sunday. The doubles tournament was on the house shot, but the singles tournament was on the Earl Anthony pattern, which is 30 mils and 43 feet. And so you have very differing, very, very different patterns that we're going to be bowling on, and he's only flying with 6 bowling balls. And so we tried to figure out what was actually going to happen. But as interesting as it got, especially because of the lane surfaces in Kansas City, there's definitely a lot to talk about there with, number one, lining up and making adjustments. And there's still going to be some ball talk, because you still need to know when to ball up, or do you ball down and stay where you're at, or do you stay with the same ball, move left, or do you ball up and move left, or what do you do? So there's still plenty of stuff has your KD ratio improved with that gamer chair? No, Blizzard's decided to handicap me. The last couple times I played Overwatch, they've stuck me with the worst players in the lobby, and it's really pissing me off. But I don't actually game in the gaming chair. This is my live stream chair. This is purely my live stream chair. So, yeah, say. Mr. Bill spent 2 years trying to bowl right and lost 15 pins exactly. And so I figured out something today that kind of worked out. And even though I've got a little bit of a wing, it still doesn't look as bad as I feel like it looks. And so I'm just going to go for knocking down pins. I don't want to be the douchey, tooly looking guy that thinks he's special because he has a YouTube channel and walks in and donates all the time. I want to, actually factor in and take some people's money. But it's kind of the idea of walking into this tournament, and you can think about it. Okay, 30 mils, 43 feet. 30 mils is a very high volume. You don't see stuff, even at Nationals, we're at like 28, 29 mils, and that's quite a bit of volume. So we're talking about like a singles and doubles pattern at Nationals with a little bit more oil. So we're talking about thinking, okay, well, we want snow tires, UFOs, phase 2s, whatever else. Brad Miller started at 4th arrow with an all-road, and that makes no sense on paper. But again, bowling's not done on paper, and so that's the kind of stuff that I want to start talking about. Again, the ball stuff's going to factor into it. But basic stuff, like, what did I want to talk about? I wanted to start talking about doggos disagree. Golf game, haven't been out golfing. Should go golfing, but I'm pale. So, my bowling coach golfed so much during the break, he looks like a different nationality now. That wouldn't happen to me unless that different nationality is bright red. And I haven't seen that before, so. The golf game probably would be okay, but I'd probably overthink it just like I do bowling, so it's probably... I can spend less money and stay in... Well, I can't really spend less money, but I can stay inside while I'm bowling anyway. I used to be really good at that, donating money, then I switched to poker. I love playing poker because I like the mental... I usually make money when I play poker, not online, but I don't want to go to a casino to play poker. Let's see. I've spent enough money on bowling balls, time to start learning how to bowl. And that's kind of the thing, is I started doing this in 2015. I started the videos in 2015, and so I've spent 5 years making ball videos, is what that's amounted to. And if you're not interested in the stuff that we start talking about, and again, I'm still going to do ball review videos. They make balls, they send them to me, I make videos. That's kind of how the thing works. But again, I don't want to farm views anymore. I want to do something that's actually, I want to start being able to perform well myself. I want to help you actually start to perform well and understand the equipment that you already do have. And I want to accomplish something more than making ball commercials and farming views for extra, tens of dollars of YouTube money. So I want to actually do something here. So let me see. Do you think there will be a UFO Pearl? There is a UFO Pearl that just got approved, but it's Microtrax 20, which is it's Pearl, of course, but it's Microtrax Pearl, which means it's Nano Pearl, which means it's probably going overseas because we don't get Nano Pearl stuff over here because it's not typically Pearl reaction like people think. The Idle Pearl is a Pearl reaction. The E-Trax, it's a cleaner, sharper formula. And so it's, when people go to buy a Pearl ball, they want to see snap. Well, Nano Pearls don't exactly snap. So it'd be akin to like the original first batches of the Phase, where, well, it's a Pearl, but it kind of acts more like a polished solid, and so nobody really liked it because it didn't go down and turn sideways. So I know the feeling of sunburns. I'm a redhead too. After spending 3 years living in Hawaii, I no longer feel the sunburns. Interesting. My wife said I don't need another ball. I don't know how to use the ones I have. Any difference between using finger grips versus not, other than a cost-saving measure? It depends on your level of comfort. There's a lot of people who, if you don't tear your fingers up, they actually like the feel of just the ball. If you like the feel of a tight finger hole, the grips actually give you a little bit more flexibility. They're softer on your fingers, and at the same time, it tears some people's fingers up more because they're softer and a little bit tackier. But that's a personal preference thing. So I would say that you're okay. What pattern is Greater Ozarks Open? I think it's like Main Street or something. It's a slightly tougher house shot. It's still a house shot. So bowling is in permanent limbo in New Jersey. We did open up. We just got to phase 2. So the wife and I actually got a pair of lanes today. They had been doing every other lane, every other table. But they're kind of phasing things back here in Kansas, and so the bowling alleys have been open for about 3 or 4 weeks in limited capacity. Now they're kind of opening up a little bit more. So I use vacuum grips with ultimate grips, and people think I'm crazy. Ultimates are pretty well. I know Vices are pretty soft. Are the Ultimates pretty soft? I think that the Ultimates are kind of close to Vices, if I remember. I wish I'd picked up the original phase. Well, I got one for my collection, but upon remembering kind of how good it is, I want to find another one so that I can actually drill it and throw it. And of course, vacuum grips are a different technique to kind of drill the outer hole a little bit bigger, and then the grips have even more give. Instead of feeling as solid as they are, vacuum grips actually give you a little bit more flexibility. So anyway, I want to talk about some basic stuff and kind of the idea that you can expect going forward. And some of this stuff is really hard to make videos for. So it's probably going to be more talking than watching balls go down the lane, but maybe I'll distract you sometimes with balls going down the lane. And there will probably be a lot of live streams or some stuff that we can actually chat on, because it's super hard to make a video, and then if somebody doesn't understand something, they leave a comment. I try to explain it in a comment, whatever else, but a lot of people normally ask some pretty good questions, and being able to respond and kind of interact live on the air here. I've even thought about doing some stuff on Zoom. So I thought about doing some like Zoom coaching, some Zoom discussions for a small fee, of course. I'm such an ass. Austin hates everything that makes sense. Austin likes the Supersonics, so I don't know that we can trust him too much. But anyway, I thought about doing some stuff like that and trying to help people get out of bowling whatever they want out of it instead of making ball commercials. Even if they're really good ball commercials, which I think they are, they're still ball commercials. Would you leave the Axiom at 3,000 bucks? That's one of those questions that it really depends on how it reacts for you. I think that you can either leave it at 3,000 or you can let it shine up. It really does look pretty good shiny, and it doesn't tear the lane up so fast. That's one of those things we're going to talk about as far as lining up, because there's so many different things to consider when starting a tournament. How many games is it going to be? What am I the most comfortable with? How are the lanes going to transition? What's everybody else doing? Just simple things that you don't even think about normally when going to line. Most people just kind of line up, and if they're striking when they come out of practice, then they're fine, but then they get lost in transition. They don't know what moves to make, what balls to go to, and so that's what I want to start talking about. So anyway, one of the very first and basic things is there is an app called PinPal, and there's several different ones. I prefer PinPal, but there's several different ones where you can actually keep track of your bowling scores frame by frame while you're bowling, and then it will give you statistics and stuff after you're done with the set. This is something to help you keep, and I never understood really the importance of this, but you can start to pick up trends, like which splits do I leave the most? Which single pins do I leave the most? What's my conversion rate? It'll tell you what your average for the set would have been had you been clean or picked up all your makeable spares. It'll tell you splits. It'll tell you it'll break down your single pins, or it'll It has something for all your makeable spares, and so you can see at a glance after you start keeping track of this stuff for month after month after month what you need to work on. The 10 pin as a single pin is probably going to be the trickiest one for righties, and so that's what I think most people focus on. But there are a lot of people that actually miss 7 pins more than you think that they might, or the 9 pin is kind of a tricky one for me sometimes, because if I hook at it, it's pretty easy to hook past it, or if I throw straight at it, it's not something I commonly leave a lot, and so I tend to leave it a little bit right, because when I'm lining, I kind of line up in the same spot that I'm lining up for my 10 pin, so it kind of drifts off to the 6 pin, 10 pin side, and so the 9 pin is actually one of the trickier single pins for me for some reason, just most because I don't really practice at it. So I have been shooting a lot of washouts lately. Apparently I suck at them, and that's something I'm halfway decent picking up washouts. I'm pretty good picking up the 2-4-10. I used to be anyway. I had a couple shots at it this weekend that didn't really go well, and one I threw out the window. But there's a couple. I think I wrapped the 2 around the 10 at least once, probably twice. But I didn't leave it that often. But I had a lot of ugly stuff this weekend. But anyway, so PinPal, find that on, it's just an app that you can download. I would recommend going ahead and paying for it. I think it's like $9 for the full thing. The limited one, or the free one, kind of gives you an idea what's going on with the app, but you can only keep track of like 1 league and 3 tournaments or something, so it's pretty limited. It gives you the idea to let you know whether you want to buy the full version or not, but just go ahead and buy the full version, trust me on this one. And I'm not affiliated with PinPal in any way, shape, or form. I just really enjoy the app. It's pretty simple, self-explanatory, easy to use, pretty basic stuff. Just keeps track of the information. So that will help you with number 1. Number 2 is practice. People don't practice enough, and when they're practicing, they don't pay enough attention to what they're practicing. Practice is a great time to not only, and this is the thing, what I do. You can't go out there and practice for a few games. I think that you have to kind of build up to bowling several games. Most of the time when I go to practice, like I said, I threw 200 shots today. Normally I bowl until my hand kind of starts to get tender, and that's around 20 to 25 games. So, which is a lot of bowling, especially in a couple hours. And I'm up there throwing shot after shot after shot as fast as I can. That's how I film too. I know that there's probably a lot of people out there who can't handle that much bowling. I would suggest to kind of try to build yourself up to that. And bowling's expensive too. That's why there's always some kind of slow time special somewhere. There's always a Sunday afternoon or something like that where they have some kind of a deal. So where you can bowl for an hour for like $15 or something like that, or 2 hours and 2 hours for $15 plus breakfast, or some kind of deal where you're not paying $3, $4, $5 a game for practice, because that could get crazy. But find some kind of deal like that, and as you bowl, the lanes will transition. And so this will let you know, as you make adjustments, you have to pay attention to what you're doing and what's working and what's not working. You can't think, well, I have all the bags set up for this and now I'm not bowling well, so I must not have the wrong balls with me. That's the complete wrong way to think about it. You build bowling bags based off of reactions, not I have 2 pearls and 2 hybrids and 2 solids, and I have a couple pin-up balls and I have a couple pin-down balls, and I have this and that, and this is at this surface and whatever else. You have to forget all of that. Once you get that in your head, then it's something that you can pay attention to later. But what you need to do is figure out what parts on the lane that you excel from, which parts you're bad at, and try playing areas of the lane that you probably shouldn't be playing with balls that you probably shouldn't be using. This will teach you some versatility. This will help you get in your head a lot better idea of what that ball's capabilities are, what the limits are, what surfaces you like things at. And surface is another thing to play around with all the time. I have people ask, well, should I try out this surface? Well, yes, because if you don't like it, you can always take it back to the other surface, or you can polish it back up, and you can do whatever you want to do. But people don't play around in practice long enough, and most of the time they don't practice long enough to create any real transition to teach yourself on or to get experience on. And so that's why I marathon bowl. I just absolutely obliterate the lane. And there's also nothing quite like a completely ruined lane to tell you what kind of condition your release is in. Because I think on TV a lot of the time the lanes are a lot more beat up than they look like they are. But the pros have such clean releases and they throw the shot so pure that they mask a lot of that stuff. If you're throwing good shots and it's coming off your hand clean, it's coming off your hand pure, it's going to ignore a lot of the little friction spots and a lot of little oil spots on the lane. And the biggest thing for me bowling, practicing today is I started on it wasn't beat up, but there wasn't a whole lot of oil on the lane to begin with. And I was throwing it terrible, and it was just everything was left. Everything was overhooking, and I had to dump it to keep it from hooking, but I was throwing it terrible. And so once we get through, I mean, at this point, I've thrown 170, 180 shots. And just everything terrible. And then the lanes, I thought I was going to have to quit because the lanes were just so destroyed. My heads were gone. And I was playing fifth arrow, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to have to quit, because I can't throw the ball any better than this. Everything's hooking as soon as I put it down on the lane. And then all of a sudden, something clicked. I got just a little bit tired. And so instead of trying to do my no wing thing, I'm like, okay, well, screw that. I'm going to put my hand in a little bit stronger position or so that I can support it a little bit better. And then all of a sudden, that gave me the strength to do some other stuff the way that I needed to do it. And all of a sudden, everything just kind of unlocked. And all of a sudden, again, I keep saying all of a sudden. But as soon as I started throwing the ball well, and getting my hand a little bit more inside of it and getting some projection on it, I started to have some shots that didn't finish. And then when I kind of got things dialed in, I was throwing some really good shots, and it looked like I had just decided to play fifth arrow on a fresh lane. And so I went from not being able to get the ball to the pocket or not being able to get it shape right through the pins to feeling like it's just a wide open house shot that I just happen to be throwing fourth or fifth arrow on. So once you do get to that point where you've bowled so much and you've transitioned the lane so much, this will help show you what you need to work on. It'll also show you which ball reactions you like best. It'll show you how those balls react on transition. Some, like the Phase 3, is really, really good on a fresh lane, but you can tell once you start getting some friction, it doesn't want to have anything to do with that. And that's one of those things where whenever I go to bowl in Kansas City, because the lanes are such high friction, the Phase 3 stays at home because it's just not going to go well. I've tried it there a couple times, and once I got it through my head that the Phase 3 cover is too sensitive to friction, it doesn't go to places where there's a lot of friction, no matter how heavy the volume is. And I saw some people trying to use the Phase 3 this weekend, and it didn't look good at all for anybody that used it. Unless you're like me, my zero revs won't tear a lane up even after hours. Now, the one thing that's actually a good point. Quartermania 5 games tops of practice for me, then I start to tire down. That's another thing I want to start talking about. But the zero revs thing. My wife has a lower rev rate. She's actually been slowing her speed down and getting a little bit more revs because she goes out and she bowls these sweepers with me. And when you are bowling sweepers, there are 6 to 8 games, and you're bowling with higher rev rates, it can get insanely tricky as a either slower speed player or somebody that doesn't bend the ball a whole lot or doesn't put a whole lot of revs on it to try to deal with the transition that the bigger rev rates create on the lanes. The bigger rev rates they want to get left. They want to dry the lanes up so that they can get left and ram on it, or yam on it, because, yeah. I do get inside the ball now a little bit more. I don't get inside the ball until right at the release, but bowling on transition created from bigger rev rates can kind of trap lower rev rates. It can help you out a little bit for, a couple games, because it does give you more friction to work with than you normally have, but then there becomes a point where there's too much friction, and it's very hard to learn how to bowl on that. So what I would suggest is taking a ball that you don't throw very much, taking it to like 500 grit and throwing a couple games with it, and then practicing on top of that. It's super, super easy to bowl on a fresh shot, and that's normally what people do. Is they get out to practice, they bowl on a fresh shot, everything goes well, and then they move on. And then they get to a tournament where there's more people bowling on the lane, and the lanes transition faster. They get somewhere else that they're maybe not familiar with, and that's when it all goes south. And so those are the things that that's part of the reason why I'm not going to bowl any tournaments left-handed, because even if I end up being like a 220 bowler at my home house, I'm a very, very ridiculously, insanely soft 220. There is a big difference between a 220 league bowler that can go to tournaments and average 220, and a 220 league bowler that always goes to tournaments and shoots 550. And that is a very real thing. You can be great at bowling on your home house shot, but if you don't travel well, that's what I would call a very soft 220, whereas somebody else that averages 220 pretty well everywhere they go, or maybe even higher at tournaments, depending on how hard their home house is, that's a whole different story. I would not travel well as a lefty, and so I would think that it's going, even if I say that I average 230 with both hands, I would bowl tournaments right-handed, because I've got so many more tricks in my bag, so much more experience and so much more knowledge with the right side of the lane, that if something doesn't happen to work out on the left side, I'm going to be trapped, because I'm not going to have the versatility, I'm not going to have the experience, and so it could be two incredibly, crazily different things. Yeah, call our sweepers by the right name, PBA sweepers. I don't want to bowl as much as I did before the break. My knee is killing me, and I can't really project the ball the way I need to. I didn't want to go bowling. I don't want to go bowling, period, because it's been frustrating. So I've been trying to get rid of the wing. I've been more concerned about what I look like. I've been concerned about donating. I've donated a lot this year. I don't think I've cashed in one of the sweepers. I made a little bit of eliminator money, which has kind of mitigated my losses more than actually won anything. Now, the wing has been limiting me at times, but again, because I'm so busy bowling leagues and filming videos and editing videos, I don't have any time to work on my own personal bowling. And so while everything looks great on YouTube, I go out and suck in tournaments, and that's not fun. And so that makes it even worse when I think about my efficient use of time, or spending, I go work, I travel for work, and then I come home and do nothing but bowling videos, and I go back to work and nothing but bowling videos, and the time that I actually do have free is spent on actually bowling, and I do that terrible because I don't have any time to practice, because I'm too busy making ball commercials on YouTube. And so that's not really, the point of, again, all the ball stuff is to set yourself up so that you can actually go out there and perform well. And that's not something that I do, or not something that I do anymore, because I don't practice. So, it's easy to average high in one center. That's why I bowl league in 3 different centers a week: Hutchinson, North Rock, and Wood Lanes in McPherson. Oh, McPherson has wood lanes? This is a fact that you neglected to tell me. I haven't bowled on wood lanes in a long time. But that also helps a little bit. I'm not bringing any big covers to the doubles tournament in a couple weeks. Yes. Also remember, practice the way you bowl and bowl the way you practice. Yes. I have not... I think I practiced with scoring on a couple weeks ago because we were kind of forced to. But that's the only time I practice with scoring on in a long time. I usually pick out something specific and practice on it. And if you're fortunate enough to have a center where you can practice spares without spending a whole bunch of money, that's when the paying $15 for or however much money for like by the hour bowling is so much better, because if you can't tell the pin setter to put down a specific spare combination or a specific single pin, like there's something on Brunswick Sync that's called My Shot, and so you can actually on the screen or the monitor down in the bowler's area, you can actually pick which spare combinations or which single pins you want to shoot at, or if you want to just shoot at a full rack. You can actually pick what you want to do. I know a lot of centers don't have the functionality for that, but if you do find somewhere where you can practice like for an hourly rate, then that's when you can practice. I definitely wouldn't practice spares if you're paying by game. That'd be rough. You've said it multiple times. Well, I don't pay attention to stuff, so. Did anybody watch the Midnight Bowlers Society tournament? I want to bowl in that next year. Seems like a ton of fun and something there should be more of. Basically, the Midnight Bowlers Society tournament, minus like the Prathers and whatever else, that's who we have at our regular sweepers. Like the whole weekend, we had Brad and Kyle were there on Saturday. A bunch of guys, Shea Bittenbender and Tim Barrett, were there from St. Louis that were also at the Midnight Bowlers Society. Ryan Burks, Kevin Williams, and Casey Murphy came up from Springfield. And so we had shooters upon shooters upon shooters in the building. So, practicing spares, I think, actually helps develop good form, better form than for strikes. I think is what that means. I know a guy who knows a guy I bowl for free. We usually bowl for free because I'm kind of affiliated with the bowling centers and the pro shops and run a tournament and whatever. So we've each done a lot for each other. So normally, especially with the videos, I get they let me film for free. With the coronavirus pandemic, whatever, we've been paying for everything to kind of help them out because there's still not a whole lot of people in there, which is kind of par for the course for bowling in the summer, but they didn't have the revenue from leagues or a whole lot of normal stuff that they're used to for, March and April going into summer. So I'm not going to go in there and bowl for free when they're hurting. So does ProMotion need control layout to not jump on friction? The ProMotion does not jump on friction. It's kind of the anti-jump on friction. It's one of the smoother balls, one of the smoother reactive balls, and maybe the smoothest one I've ever thrown. So Texas had half the PBA tour at the beginning of the month. The scratch tournaments, needless to say, I skipped those ones. Yeah, there has been a lot more guys that are traveling right now. Typically, we don't see the guys from St. Louis or the guys from Springfield very much unless there's nothing else going on and they've got the itch to bowl. But we had everybody showing up. There's not a whole lot. I mean, there's really nothing else going on. And now that bowling's kind of back, everybody just wants to get out and bowl. So were the sweepers in Topeka? No, they were in Kansas City. We have a bunch of them in Kansas City. I think the ProMotion's a perfect ball for a short pin layout, especially for a higher rev bowler. I don't even think you need a short pin layout, but yes, it would be a good ball for a short pin layout if you have like an EJ Tackett size rev rate, and you need something that's urethane but not urethane. Going tomorrow to Planet Bowl in Midwest City, Oklahoma. Chris Barnes, Stu Williams. I think the Laveries are going. Yeah, everybody's going all over the place. Yeah, very good point. Practice corner pins, the first ball, strike ball, or whatever is left on the second ball. So, yes, that's a very good point to make the most out of your practice instead of lining up to strike and then only shooting the spares you're left with. Shoot at the spare you want to on the first ball and then throw your strike ball on the second shot. That'll get you a whole bunch more stuff done there. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is getting yourself physically in a good place to be able to handle all this stuff you're doing. I am the skinniest fat kid that you'll ever meet. I like porking out. I mean, I watch 600 Pound Life, and they have some really great stuff on there. Before they start their whole weight loss thing and they show them eating all the, eating what they like to eat, there's some great stuff I've found on there. But I did start to pack on some pounds and a few inches and whatever else during the shutdown, because I thought, you know what? We're taking a break off from everything. I'm not working right now. I'm not bowling. I don't need to be in good shape for anything. So I'm going to pig out. I'm going to just lay around and watch movies, and I'm going to eat whatever I want to eat. And it ended up, sleeping a lot, not feeling like doing much, not having energy, not doing whatever. And then, when you do too much physical activity for a while, you get short of breath and you get tired and whatever else. And so I completely put the kibosh on that. And so I've gotten into, I got rid of the sweets. I don't do sweets anymore. I've started eating less when I actually eat, because there is a point where you get full, but then you keep eating because it tastes good. That's normally what I do. And so I've been watching what I've been eating a whole lot. Now that I've gotten back to work and gotten back to bowling, I'm getting some exercise in. I bought some workout bands to kind of help me with my shoulder and stuff. And so I've been paying a whole lot more attention to my health in general. And now I don't eat a meal and instantly fall asleep and then, ready to wake up to go to bed to sleep a whole bunch more and still have trouble waking up in the morning. I wake up in the morning now without the alarm clock. I can climb on bridges all day and not get out of breath or not get super tired. I went and, again, I threw 200 shots today, and aside from a little spot on my thumb being kind of tender, I took a shower and ate a little bit of Chipotle and felt great. I didn't need a nap. I didn't, start getting dizzy or lightheaded or anything, throwing a shot every 30 seconds plus screaming at myself. So bowling is one of those sports, kind of like golf, where you don't need to be in the best physical condition to participate in it, but to really excel or to, do these longer practice sessions or go out and bowl 6 to 8 game sweepers without getting fatigued at least, or fatigued even a little bit. Excuse me. But when coronavirus, look out, I sneezed. But when, and I don't know how many people have 6 to 8 game sweepers a lot, but that's kind of the norm for us around here. And so I used to get kind of tired or even disinterested by game 4 or 5, and a lot of them, like, okay, I'm ready to be done with this, and I'm kind of tired already anyway, and that doesn't help at all, and when I'm not bowling well on top of that. But now I feel, I can bowl an 8 game sweeper, and aside from, being a little sweaty, I don't feel tired, I don't feel anything. So even though I'm not being able to do my typical fat kid stuff, I feel a whole hell of a lot better, and everything that I do is so much easier. I've lost 12 pounds. I'm all the way down to 180, which I didn't really have weight to lose in the first place, but that's kind of a fun byproduct of not eating donuts. And man, Belgian waffles with sausage gravy is probably the greatest thing that I found. It's probably the best thing I found on 600 Pound Life. I didn't even know that you could put sausage gravy on Belgian waffles, but that's a fantastic idea. That's amazing.
To your peanut butter and jelly French toast.
Mm-hmm. Man, the peanut butter and jelly French toast with the dark chocolate, with the dark chocolate whipped peanut butter and blackberry jelly. Amazeballs. Yeah, no. And even better, like, I am hardcore addicted to sugar. Like, I love sugar. And we've got a big thing of M&Ms and a big thing of Skittles, and we've got donuts and we got ice cream and whatever else, and I haven't had any of it. I'll maybe get like 10 M&Ms every once in a while to just kind of take the edge or the sweet tooth off. Then the chocolate stays in your mouth for a while. So yeah, now we're on a
I mostly got the donuts for Tanner. I was hoping I wasn't torturing you too much.
Yeah, so we're on a bowling live stream, and I'm talking about eating healthy, but it's kind of what goes.
About eating junk food. You're not
Yeah. Oh man, love me some junk food.
Yeah, get it right.
Something I've found that's really good. I like drinks. I really like drinking stuff. And so lemon juice and lime juice, probably about an ounce of each in a 24 ounce blender bottle, shaker bottle thing. And then a couple packets of stevia, which is not artificial sweetener. It's not sugar. It's all natural sweetener that has no calories. And then you fill that up with water and you make yourself basically a lemon limeade that tastes like a regular lemonade and has 0 calories, and it's fantastic. Highly recommend that. So, with 300 revs and 5 by 1.5 up, my pro shop said I can't use pin down because it won't flare and go full roller, but can I use short pin? I don't know why you wouldn't be able to go pin down, because mine, well, yeah, it might. I mean, it's not like it's not going to flare. 1.5 inches up might get you close to tracking on your thumb hole, but I still don't. I still think that you're going to be off of that. I don't understand the not flaring thing. As long as something's got an 050 diff, and that's kind of a fairly normal axis, you might be a little higher up, but I don't know why it wouldn't flare. When you talked about overthinking, is it more lane player mechanics? It's everything. It's literally everything in life. Whiskey fixes it really quick, but you know, when you're bowling 8 games and it takes 7 or 8 hours to do that, you can only shut the hamster. You got to maintain an even keel. There's a point where you get to where the hamsters get a little too satiated, and that doesn't end up being good. You still have to be able to perform, but trying to ride that line of keeping the hamsters satisfied and not pushing yourself too far to where you still can't perform is kind of tricky. But overthinking is what I do. I'm a professional at that. I watched some PBA players play this spare game against each other where low score wins, but a gutter's a strike. Great game for practicing spares. I also had a drill that I like to do when you can select, when you have like the My Shot thing, when you can select the pin you want it to drop. It's the 1 through 10. So you start with the head pin, then you go to the 2, you pick that up, you go to the 2 pin, 3 pin, all the way through the rack. And if you miss any one at any point, you got to start over again. So, will you get into the mental game at all with your SYGU? Yes. We love the mental game stuff because a lot of that goes into tournament performance and even just league performance. So, and this is all stuff, again, that's hard to put on a video. When I can spend a couple hours rambling about it, and when people can ask me questions and we can go back and forth, that's what's actually going to help. So again, there's going to be a lot of, we're going to have certain topics to cover in the live streams, and we're going to talk to James a lot about a lot of stuff. But the mental game is a huge and underappreciated part of it. There's this great book that I haven't read yet that's called The Mental Game of Tennis or something like that. I should get the actual title of the book. I'm the same. It's like when I step on the approach, there's a Reddit AMA going on in my head. Yes, and people that don't have problems with that don't understand that it feels like there's constantly like a rock concert going on in your head, or everything pings off of everything else, and you can't actually quiet and focus on what you're doing because your head is still spinning, thinking about what everybody else is doing and what you're doing and the ball that you have in your hand and what you have in your bag and what you should be doing at every point in your mechanics and whatever else, and there just gets to be so much noise up there that you can't just actually perform. And I had a really hard time practicing today because I literally could not walk and swing my arm at the same time. That's how crazy it is in the brain of somebody that has an overactive mental state. Because what I was trying to do is I kept getting to the inner game of tennis, I think, Sean. So yeah, I overthink every shot, or I completely zone out and forget. Yeah, because you stop trying to overthink and you're like, okay, let's just go out there and bowl. Or you overthink everything to the point that you actually can't remember what the hell you're doing because you're trying to not chase the rabbit trails and keep your brain on what's going on. But when there's so many things to keep track of, and then your brain is doing so much with every single one of those things that you're trying to keep track of, you have my resulting condition during practice today where I just could not. My biggest problem is my timing. My hand tends to get to the line at the same time as my slide foot, and so that makes me grab the ball stays on my hand longer than it should, or I just flat lose a bunch of leverage. I spent probably 50 or 60 shots just trying to slow my feet down and slow my arm swing down, and it didn't happen for 50 or 60 shots. It just didn't, and I called myself an idiot the whole time. But at the same point, I'd like to actually have control over what's going on up in my head. Yeah, Randy Peterson once said on a telecast that he thinks the reason why Pete Weber's so great because he only ever has one thought on his mind on the approach, and that's the difference between thinking in black and white and thinking in color. People like Pete Weber can just quiet everything and focus on what they're doing and just go out there and do it. While Chris Barnes, on the other hand, very colorful thinker, he's figured out how to kind of control it and isolate things. And I think that once you get a certain level of experience and develop a certain level of comfort, my head is a little bit quieter than it used to be now, but sometimes it ramps up even more. Thankfully, I haven't had a whole lot on my mind here recently, but even then, with not thinking about, okay, well, I've got to do reviews this weekend, I've got a tournament coming up this weekend, we've got this, whatever, and I'm bowling terrible and whatever else, it just... But good preparation in all facets of the game is going to ease the strain on what you mentally have to pay attention to. It makes certain things a whole lot more intuitive. And so if you can develop your eye for ball reaction, if you can have yourself in pretty good shape, if you can be solid on your spare game, if you've figured out what works well for you on transition, what your typical moves are. Like there are some people, there's a lot of people actually, a lot of the better bowlers that I've watched that they go to the well. They go to the well nearly 100% of the time. And if they're not abusing their A game, they at least have a good enough idea what they're doing to kind of make something else work if they can't play their A game. But if at all possible, they do what they're good at. You see some of the best ever, Norm Duke and Walter Ray, Liz Johnson, even somebody like Belmo, Kyle Troop, E.J. Tackett. I mean, E.J. Tackett hooks it pretty well all the time unless there's a better line, or unless he just can't do it. Chris Prather likes to slow hook it from deep quite a bit. Not everybody has to be 100% versatile. You see somebody like Norm Duke or Liz Johnson, if they're hooking the ball, you should not ever be right of Norm Duke or Liz Johnson on the lane like ever at any point ever. If they cannot make the ditch work, it is not in play. And when you think about somebody like that, or when you think about people like that, Norm Duke can hook the ball. Liz Johnson can hook the ball, but it's only an ability they have if their A game does not work. And that's probably the number one biggest thing. And the thing that hurts me the most is when I'm out practicing, fourth arrow is my wheelhouse. And I always feel like, well, you know what, I can strike for days from fourth or fifth arrow. I can just do my thing and I can strike there. I want to get better at the other stuff kind of right of third or fourth arrow, because getting right of third arrow, I can be laying the ball down on 15 and feeling like it's the 5 board. It's just I kind of get claustrophobic and everything gets out of whack when I get that far right. But on a house shot with the strength of the equipment that we have nowadays, it's just not going to be in play. And so there's no realistic reason for me to be out there. And when I can watch a guy like Shea Bittenbender from St. Louis always play fourth arrow on just about everything and be really damn good at it, why do I care what's happening on the 3 other arrows right of that? If I am good at fourth and fifth arrow, why not play there all the time? Because number one, in tournaments with longer formats, you're going to get there eventually. People are going to start further right, and so you're going to be by yourself for a little while, and so the lanes are going to come to you, and then you can just kind of gradually move with everybody else. That's one of those lane play things. It's like, well, where do you start off? Where do you start out? What ball do you start with? And that's something that James and I are going to break down on the next one, so I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. But Bowling Psychology by Dean Hinnitz, I think I've heard that's a pretty good one too. So, yeah, Riley makes a good point here. I always want to play right at 15, but like you said, the patterns and equipment strength make it even tougher, even when you throw motive stuff. But yeah, I would love to be. But the thing is, when I did the Nationals videos, or when I had kind of the breakdown, I had to break down the team shot. I'm pretty good, or especially when I use the Nationals doubles and singles shot for my sports shot for the videos, for the ball reaction videos. I'm pretty good playing straight on the doubles and singles pattern, but I think, well, there's a lot of oil and there's a lot of oil and there's a lot of length, and so it lets me ram on it. If I could throw the ball better, then I could play further right. But that's not necessarily. Chris Prather can play further right too, but he's so good from deep. Why would you even mess with anything right at that? Riley's two-handed. Yeah, look at Brian Kretzer, guy is the slow hook king. When that's in play, you see that dude in the money. Yeah. And it'd be nice to be more, you'd think it'd be nice to be more versatile, more versatile, and so when that's not in play, that you could still play the other areas of the lane. But the biggest point that I can make when it comes to that is that pros are not necessarily, I don't want to say that pros are one-dimensional, but you see pros doing the same, playing their A game, if at all possible. And you would think that would be the one place where you would want to be as versatile as possible as the PBA Tour. And somebody like Anthony Simonson has all kinds of tricks. But when you're so good to the point that you can, like Chris Prather or Norm Duke or Liz Johnson, when you can make a certain area of the lane work that's not favorable to somebody else because you're so good at playing your A game, that's the definition of being a professional, because there's a lot of really versatile players that are not great at any one thing. They're kind of a jack of all trades, master of none type of deal. And this is something that a lot of the pros have talked about too, is you got to find what you're good at and abuse the hell out of it. And if they're doing it out on tour, why are you not doing it on house shots and house shot tournaments? So that's the point of trying different things in practice, is to figure out what's going on with everything. Figure out what kind of equipment that you like to begin with. Figure out what kind of layouts work best for you. Find out what kind of surfaces you prefer, and this will actually teach you a bunch of stuff. The practice thing where I said, practice as long as you can, because when you get to tournaments, they might be drier, they might be wetter, they might be, they're definitely going to dry out faster. They're definitely going to make you move. So you need to get comfortable with making ball changes and making moves and figuring out when you do need to make a ball change, when you need to make a move. The strength of the covers paired with the friction levels of the lane. I mean, there's so much stuff that goes into it that it's ridiculously apparent when you have somebody like a Brad Miller or a Kyle Sherman or somebody, these bigger name tournament bowlers that are always in the money and you know who they are walking in the door. They are so good at these extra little things, but it's because they practice them all the time. And even if you don't have the time to practice all the time, just lining up on a fresh shot and throwing your comfort zone for 3 or 4 games isn't going to get it done. You have to know what you're comfortable at, but at the same time, that's not all you want to practice. Even though I'm saying that you need to have a good A game. Hopefully you can understand where I'm going with that. Yes. Shred the rack, exactly what I'm talking about. Heard somebody say recently that the key to winning big tournaments in PBA events is doing your A game better than anybody else, and when the lane is set up for your A game, you have to take advantage. Yes. And there are several things within your A game too. It's not like you just line up on a fresh shot and everything kind of works and you never have to move, you never change balls. But if you're good at hooking the ball, you hook the ball and you move left with the transition, and generally once you get a solid wall of friction on the outside and you can keep moving left because that's your jam, then do that. But you've also got to figure out what you got to figure out your equipment plans, and you got to figure out everything else and how to actually make that work. There's plenty of people that are good at hooking the ball that are just absolutely wretched when transition sits in because they either can't move left or they don't know what equipment to move left with, or they don't have a plan set up. They have a diverse and varied arsenal for just because, but they don't actually think through the process of an entire set. I mean, when I set up my bags to bring for the doubles tournament on Sunday last weekend, I thought, okay, well, there's going to be plenty of friction. You definitely don't want to start off right a third arrow because that's probably not going to be in play, number one. You're not going to be using very strong stuff. So the plan is to start with something kind of weakish, start a little bit deeper, let the lanes come to you, and then follow in with the lanes. And so instead of coming in with an axiom and a physics and all this other stuff just to have your varied arsenal, that doesn't make sense. I like it when you play right and take your hand out of it. Yes, if I can actually, you don't see all the shots that I have to edit out because I throw it terrible because I suck playing right-handed. But I'm trying to work on being able to functionally do that, partly because I want to be able to play right, but at the same time, there is a certain point where there gets to be so much friction on the lane that even when you're playing deep, you have to learn how to do that. So, how's the hypercell selling? I imagine you're talking about the nuke. The nuclear came out kind of at a bad time. That was right when the whole virus thing started up. And so the most recent ones we have, the nuclear cell and the axiom, probably aren't selling that great just because we're just getting back into bowling. And there's a lot of people that probably don't have money for bowling balls right now. And they don't probably want to be buying bowling balls in June. So I'm not sure how all that stuff's going. Another very good point. I averaged 189 in a sport sweeper, made the cut doing with what I was comfortable with, and picked up spares. Thought I had no chance when I couldn't string strikes. The tougher the condition is, the more important spares are going to be. And one of the other big things that I find that better bowlers do so well is they just absolutely annihilate the pocket. And the difference between the good bowlers and the great bowlers is that the great bowlers don't only hit the pocket, but they have those physical tricks to get the pins down. And this is something I've talked about quite a bit, is just getting the pins down no matter how it looks, even though I don't take my own advice. No matter what it looks like. And this is when I was practicing earlier, at one point I was throwing a fit because I was throwing my Idle Pro, and even when I was making better shots than I had been making earlier in practice. Everything, it was a wrap 10, it was a 9-pin, it was a 4-pin, it was a flat 10. I could not strike for probably 10 or 15 shots, and it was single pins. I was getting tapped every single time, and I was just getting frustrated because I'm like, well, these are better shots than I've been throwing, but they're not good enough. I don't feel like I have enough control. I feel like I'm getting out of the ball okay, but I'm getting out of the ball too easy. I'm trusting the ball too much. I'm not making it do what I want it to do. And then as soon as something clicked, all of a sudden, my carry percentage shot through the roof because I was throwing a lot better shots, and I had a lot more control over what the ball is doing. And so if somebody tells you you can't practice carry or you shouldn't chase carry, they're wrong. I used to think that you let the lanes come to you, keep hitting the pocket, and good things will happen. Well, no, you need to figure out the little minutiae or the little things that help you kick that 10-pin or trip that 4 or not leave the 9-pin or whatever else. And the best bowlers are the ones that get the luck or get the hits. I'm writing a book right now, which is kind of the beginning parts are kind of the history of my life somewhat and how I'm here and why my head's so screwed up and why I can't win anything. And then we're going to analyze why that is and go into the mental side of things and kind of chase whatever else. And I just lost my train of thought because I started thinking about the book. I was writing before I got on here and I was in the middle of something and then I needed to set up and... So I completely forgot what I was talking about. I think the Idol Pro would be a good ball for a medium rev lefty. The higher rev guys I bowl with make that thing look great. Yeah, I think that if you can... you said earlier that you had trouble with the ball going past the spot. So yeah, I think the Idol Pro would be good. It's a little bit too much hook for me lefty, but everything's too much hook for me lefty where I've been bowling, so... and yeah, the Idol Pro is another one of those where I thought it was going to be too much boom and where I didn't think that it didn't really handle angle well, but as it's kind of settled in, it's gotten a little bit smoother on friction, so it's more continuous than it was when I started off with it, and because it's not responding so quickly to friction, it's not burning any energy and standing up, and so the Idol Pro has actually turned into something, especially when I was practicing with it today, I could throw it from anywhere once I started throwing it good. Anyhow, I wish I could remember what I was talking about because I had a really good point to make. I'm sure we'll cover it sometime. What's your opinion on the Storm Electrify or whatever it's called? I talked about those a little bit earlier. I'm not going to be doing reviews on those. The lower end stuff is not typically as popular as the higher end stuff, and so that's not really where they want to put their advertising dollars. But I've been saying for a long time that the hotline, just the matchups, the matches were pretty good. The matchups, none of them have really worked out well in my opinion. And I thought that they needed to kind of scrap that and redo it. Well, now they have more. Now the Electrifies are kind of more in the vein of the Hustles, lower RG, but also lower differential, weaker, lower friction covers on them. And so they're going to be able to control the lane a whole lot better and still give you that kind of lower end look that you want. I thought that the matchups were kind of inconsistent. Will Storm discontinue the sell due to COVID-19 or let time? No, they're just going to slow down releases to give people a chance to buy. There's no reason to discontinue them just because they haven't discontinued anything just because people can't go out and buy them. So leave more 9-pins with the Idol Pro than I do with any other ball. As you continue to use it, and I just let mine shine and continue to shine and continue to get use on them. As you continue to get use on stuff and just keep it clean, it blends the lane a whole lot better. And so that's why I don't tend to do a whole lot of surface stuff with my equipment. I don't need surface very often, but the more use I get on stuff, the more it tames it down, the more versatile it actually makes the ball, number one, because once I used to not really be able to get left of fourth arrow with the Idle Pro because it would just straighten off. It's still, despite being a solid, cover designators don't matter. Cover designators don't matter. But because it's so strong on friction, from the deeper angles, it can stand up a little bit too much. But now that I've smoothed it off, I was playing fifth arrow with it today, and it was looking great. Finally getting around to getting a Jackal Ghost. I feel like the alpha's a little slower than I'd like. How did you not have a Jackal Ghost? Interesting. Thoughts on the ProMotion versus Idle Pro versus Phase 2? I did a video on those three, actually, if you want to go check that out. That was my Nuclear Trio video. I think I actually had all of those on there. The ProMotion, Idle Pro, and Phase 2. See, I made a video about that. Look at Nuclear Trio. Back in my... How about the two new Hustles? I'm not doing anything with the Hustles either. Again, they want to spend their advertising dollars on the higher end equipment because that's what people are more interested in. The two new Hustles look like they're going to be fine. We're getting a sanded solid one, and so those actually, they actually look really good. So. The PBR is definitely going to be a memorable name. Oh yeah, and I'm sure that they definitely noticed that when they were the Hustles, aside from the ink, have gone in the HYB, which stood for hybrid. They've gone with whatever the initials are of the three colors that they use to make the ball. So, so that's like purple, blue, red, or something like that. But yeah, they knew what they were doing. All right, so we've talked about Pen Pal. We've talked about practicing with intent. We've talked about getting yourself in decent enough shape to be able to do this stuff. I think that's most of what I wanted to cover today. We'll cover a bunch of stuff when I'm talking with James next weekend. He was too busy making money today. So, yeah. Like I said, I'm probably going to get an Axiom because that looks... when you see the pros already adopting the Axiom and throwing it so quick on TV, Belmo won his 13th major with it. There's a lot of Axioms all over the place already, so you know it's legit. Because especially when they don't need balls that hook that much on the tour a whole lot. There's some more stuff that's coming on, like the Idle's getting used a whole lot here recently. So they're beginning to adopt and use... stronger bowling balls, but normally it takes kind of a while for the stuff to filter on tour because they're going to use the tried and true stuff. They're going to use what they know is going to be fine. They're not going to experiment. Well, let's drill a new ball and throw it in this block, and maybe that block hurts them because they're getting used to a new ball and they don't make a cut or something. So they're so it's one of those things where they throw in practice sessions and whatever, just, practice on the side, period, to try to get used to something new. And so it seems like it takes a while for stuff to trickle kind of onto the tour before you see a whole lot of use out of it. But everybody has adopted the Axiom. That's one of those real deal type balls that you're going to see in everybody's bag because it is that good. They're bringing back the Tropicals, right? They got the Tropical Surges that are actually a whole lot better for... the Tropical Surges are a whole lot better as far as a low-end beginner option than the Tropical Storms were, or the Tropical Breezes, whatever they had before that. Talking about lane shine, my Pinup Revolt Havoc was going from like 27, 28 the areas to the 5th board at 42 feet the other night in League. Yeah. Yep, love that stuff. Lane shine for the win. G'day, Luke. Hope you and the family are staying safe and well from Oz down under. Yes, we're doing fine. I have so far not caught the virus. Which is kind of odd because I'm out everywhere all the time. We're back traveling on the road for work, and so I've been in hotels and restaurants and everything else, and then we've been at bowling tournaments where there's 100 people bowling on 24 lanes, so social distancing for the win. UFO's a winner too. Love how it shapes, even though it's a big one. Still is responsive. Yeah, it's still responsive and pretty continuous, and so you've seen guys like Simonson using it. There's been some other people using it too, so that's another one of those real deal type balls that people have started using pretty quick. So, all right, so there's nothing really new on the bowling front. There's a bunch of stuff on the approved ball list if you want to go check that out. Most of it's overseas. We haven't gotten any kind of information. I don't get any information anyway because staffers for some reason are the biggest one to leak stuff, and so they just don't need to tell us until we need to know. So what do you think what ball do you think is the next to get discontinued? I don't think that the Halo Pearl is going to be around for much longer, even though it should. I need to order another one of those before that gets discontinued. The Physics last time I heard was still selling well, but it's the last ball on the on its way out, and we're due for a hybrid in the Premier line next. So that's probably that. The Idol's been around for a while, but it's still getting a whole lot of use, and you're still seeing it all the time on TV. So I'd be really stunned if they got rid of that, even though, you know, we've got the Axiom out now, and I'm glad that they went a different direction with the HP3 line. I hope that we keep the Idols and see a couple of wild streaks. Yeah, 0 social distancing at the last tournament. I was at 100 guys on a shift, and it was like sardines up in there. Yeah, bowling tournaments are back, and nobody's paying any attention to anything. All roads should get discontinued, which is really funny because I saw a crap load of those this weekend. You know, my wife's actually looks pretty good. It's one of those balls that's either outstanding for you or absolute garbage. I fell in the one where it was kind of the absolute garbage. But I really wasn't throwing it that great either, and I think I tried out some pitch thing. So watching the guys this weekend, like I said, Brad Miller was throwing it on the fresh on the Earl Anthony pattern. But high friction lanes, we're going to talk about that next week. Shea Bittenbender brought one of them. I saw all kinds of people throwing the all-road for some reason. I didn't understand it. But I probably should give that one another shot. Because on those higher volume patterns when you're moving left and still need the ball to clear the fronts, but a strong enough cover and enough differential to get it back up the hill or around the corner, it could be useful. I feel like I get trapped kind of in between my Halo Burn and my High Road T, which is really weird that I go from a Nano Pearl cover ASIM all the way down to a R2S Pearl super high RG ball when I'm moving left. But the High Road, once it gets dry enough that I can't get the Halo Burn down the lane, then I just have to go to the High Road T, and I wish I kind of had something in between there, but I really don't. I need to drill up that new Idle Pearl. And the Astro is another one that I saw a lot of this weekend. The two that I've drilled have gone a little too forward off the end of the pattern. My new one is a little too sharp. Well, hi, Aspen Piggy. What are you over here for? Hi, Aspen. So the dogs are down here in their crates like normal, but Aspen has decided to come out of her crate and lay next to the leg of the tripod on the carpet, which I've never ever seen before, which is a little bit weird, but it's funny. You want to be over here next to me, Aspen Piggy? I know, you're a good pig. But yeah, I think the Astro is going to be around for a while because it's kind of that Code Black idea that a lot of people missed when the Code Black got discontinued. And so I like what they're doing within the lines where they kind of differentiate a lot of stuff. It used to be just, okay, well, asymmetric cores, we're getting strong covers. And we're going to have strong symmetrics, and we're in this line, and then we're going to have this in this line. I like what they're kind of varying with, kind of playing Mr. Potato Head inside the lines. And Yeah, our resident two-hander makes the all-road hook a ton. It does hook a ton. Mine was really smooth and kind of lazy down lane. I probably just didn't have enough games on it, but yeah, High Road Pearl seems to be a forgotten ball that slowly creeped back into the fold again. Yeah, as soon as Belmo used it in that other bay at World Series of Bowling last year, all of a sudden people are, oh yeah, the High Road Pearl. That's a good ball. We should probably be using that. So yeah, I may stop bowling if they ever get rid of the Hustle Link. That ball defies physics and works so well for me. Yeah, it's one of those cheater balls that just doesn't make sense with what it does. Now, what would you recommend for a first-time overseas ball? Well, that's interesting. You probably don't want to spend a whole bunch of money on one. If you want something safe, you could probably find a Phase Star because it's got the Phase Core and R2S Pearl on it. So that'd be something familiar at least. But I find that a lot of the overseas stuff is just kind of different. Just kind of different, matches with stuff. But at the same time, there are some reactions. This is something I've been talking to James a lot about because the Nano Pearl reaction, I think the one thing that's missing in the stateside kind of, package of reactions, which we have a lot of diverse reactions, period, but Nano Pearl is so unique in that it gets down the lane, it blends the friction, it doesn't burn up or stand up on the friction, and it still continues through the pins. I think that's something that we're really missing. But it doesn't act like typical Pearl stuff, and so oh crap, I gotta sign out. When you go onto the website, have an account on the website to order stuff for, and when I'm logged in, it doesn't show the international stuff because I can't order the international stuff. So I knew this wasn't going to work. Okay, we're just going to do this. I brought the mouse down, but I forgot the mouse pad, and I have a glass desk. So, oh man, Pitch Sky. That's interesting. Crystal Physics. Heck yeah. So they've got stuff. They've got the Power Gate on there, the Pitch Sky, which I don't even know what that is. Critical Code, Marvel Max Attack. High Road Rush is an interesting one because it's got R3S or R3X Pearl on the High Road cover. So that's a pretty strong cover on that core, or the High Road core, I mean. Crystal Physics is going to be an interesting one because it's the Physics core with NRG2 Pearl. The Code Extreme, Angel has one of the Code Extremes, and it's great. It looked really good for her on the Earl Anthony pattern because the cover is strong enough to kind of get through some of that oil, but it's also blendy enough, and it doesn't lose any energy on friction. And so it actually worked out really good for her on something where shiny just wasn't an option for the first couple games. It actually looked really good for her. So the Crystal Physics, one of the private label balls. But yeah, the Code Extreme was really good. And a slower, smoother, but still shiny pearl cover stock on that dynamic atomic core should be pretty interesting. Then we also have the ProMotion Tour, which is R2X Solid, I believe. So yeah, this should be, the ProMotion Tour should be kind of along the lines of an Idol Pro, I would think. Angel's got one of them, but hasn't drilled it yet. Probably not going to drill it. Let's see, what else do they have? They got the IQ Tour Sapphire, the Code 1, which is R4S Pearl. So, yeah, some of those, I think the ProMotion Tour would be pretty safe. But if you're wanting to get into something different reaction-wise that we don't really have over here, the Crystal Physics or the Critical Code are probably a couple that I would check out. Because I think the Critical Code is Energy Pearl, Energy 3 Pearl. So, yeah, those are probably a couple of the ones I'd suggest for that. So, don't you feel like they have to discontinue the high roads at some point, or at least the OG? Can they really have another 10 years? Most of these guys on the Facebook group just buy and stash that stuff. They don't seem to drill any of it. Exactly. Most people want to have it just to have it. That's why I have my phase collection. I haven't drilled any of it. Number one, because I want to have it, new to begin with. But at the same time, it's really hard to put holes in something that costs $350 or $400. That's the other thing. It's like, if I'm actually going to put holes in this and drill it, is it going to be worth the $350 or $400 I spent on it? It's a very few balls that I would actually drill. I do have a Marvel Max Force, which is an RG Pearl, that I'm considering drilling. I want to get another Halo Burn that I definitely would drill, because I'm kind of glad I decided to drill. The first couple overseas balls I got, I drilled. And I'm really glad that I drilled the Halo Burn, because it's been amazing. Just amazing, amazing, amazing. It's one of the best reactions I've got in my bag. Yeah, Bolds had a reddish orange high road the other day. Can't remember what it was called, but can't seem to find it. I think it was overseas. It's the High Road Pursuit, because he actually not really into it, and I think I'm going to get it for the wife. So she's never had a High Road Pearl, and she can't stand purple or the grape scent. So I'm going to get that for her. I've only thrown my Royal Revolt a few times, honestly. Yeah, most of the time, the thing with having the overseas balls is just having them just to have them. But at the same time, again, with the Halo Burn that's got Microtrax P18 on it, which is Microtrax Pearl, which is Nano Pearl, that's been an amazing ball. I think Riley got to see that for the last few games on the doubles tournament, where I actually threw it not bad. A lot of the stuff is kind of Mr. Potato Head stuff, though, which is kind of cool. But anyhow, I think that's I'm kind of out of rambling here. But basically, if you weren't here earlier, the basic idea, basically, for people who want to be basic, because I just want to say basic a lot. The idea is that I'm going to shift away from spamming the ball videos and the ball comparisons and all that. I'm still doing reviews. That's still kind of my thing. But I want to help you, at a certain point you have to get out of the pro shop. And I feel like this channel's been stuck in the pro shop for like 5 years. And I realize that there's constantly new people coming in. There's constantly new people learning. There's a need for that. There's a use for that. But I have 425 videos that you can go back and watch to learn about layouts and surfaces and ball reactions and lane play and reading ball reaction and all this kind of stuff. And so I want to start getting into more productive stuff that'll help you when you're actually out on the lanes, because again, what happens on these live streams a lot is people ask, this ball, what's this ball compared to this ball compared to this ball? If you watched all my videos and don't know where the UFO would fit in an arsenal, or you want it compared to an IQ Emerald or something, you need to go back and watch the older videos. I realize that everybody's at different points of learning, but we've been on this kick for so long, it gets redundant in the chat. A lot of the comparison videos were honestly just kind of farming for views. People liked them, and it helped some people out, but I felt that it was ridiculously and crazily redundant. And it gets the focus off of what you want to do. There's so many people that ask, that they just fiddle with ball comparisons and arsenals and whatever else, and if they go out there and bowl and it doesn't work out, then they think, okay, well, what do I need to take out of the bag, or what do I need to put in the bag, or what do I need to... You need to learn how to bowl, is what you need to learn how to do. And that's where we're going to kind of start going that direction. And that's what the basics of downloading PinPal. It's an app. Go ahead and pay for the full version. It'll be worth it. That'll help you analyze what you need to work on, help you keep track of what you're doing, and so you'll notice trends. And there's sometimes you can also tell at what point into a tournament you get lost in the transition. I can always tell that the second game in League is my worst game, because I typically start off too far right. And then if you expect a lot of transition, or see a lot of players playing further left than you, and then you're going on to their lanes later, or you see a lot of people playing left of you in League and you're going to stay on that pair, the transition's going to catch you, it's going to trap you. There's so many different things that you need to pay attention to when it comes to transition and how to adjust to that transition. That stuff we're going to talk about. Getting yourself in a better place physically. Sausage gravy on Belgian waffles is fantastic. That's the best thing I've ever heard of, actually. But it's going to slow you down. It's going to bog you down. You're not going to be able to, your stamina is not going to be as good. You're going to be tired. You're going to be whatever else. So clean up your eating habits. Watch your calories. Drink better stuff like Synergy Raw Kombucha Raspberry Chia, which is amazing. And yes, that's perfect point. Shred the Rack Bowling. I think a lot of the time review videos can handicap a bowler, and this is one of the, thank you for saying that, actually, because this is one of the points I wanted to get across, is that there have been so many people that have been dependent on me to explain the ball reactions to them that they're not learning it themselves. And the whole point of all the ball reaction videos and all the comparisons and all the other stuff that I've done is to teach you how to read ball reaction and teach you how to take care of this stuff yourself, or to work with your pro shop operator to take care of it so that you can get out of the pro shop and actually go apply it on the lanes. And there's I don't want to single anybody out, but there's a few certain people that keep asking the same questions over and over and over again, or they watch a video where I specifically touched on a certain topic and they ask me about that topic, and I'm like, well, it's in the video. I mean, I spent a solid minute talking about this in the video. And you know, it's the more subscribers I get, the harder it is to kind of appeal to everyone or to kind of please everyone. And I want to cover all that stuff, but at the same time, I don't like the direction of where I've been going with just making the videos that get views. Because it's a whole bunch of redundancy. It's just comparing this ball to that ball and just seeing the same stuff on the screen and trying to describe different things 24/7. And I do it just because it feels like a more efficient use of my time, not necessarily because it's going to help anybody out. And I would actually like to, instead of spending 40 hours every weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, making videos, editing videos, I would actually like to get better myself and accomplish some things. And I would actually like to accomplish some things on YouTube instead of just being that ball review guy that thinks he's a hotshot because he gets views on YouTube. I have gone to several other channels and have seen the quality or lack thereof of the videos. I'm definitely not going to name any names because I don't want that drama. But there's tons and tons of channels out there that kind of do the same thing but aren't very good at it, and they get tons and tons of views just because they're talking about bowling balls. It may not make any sense. It may not be very helpful. It might be confusing. Or if you're making a ball review based off of throwing 10 shots, that doesn't make any sense. And so I just kind of feel like I'm stuck in this rut where I might be making good ball videos, but there's plenty of people out there putting in super low effort, just kind of phoning it in because they get their views and they leave. And I'm like, well, if people like those videos or think that those are actually good, then what am I wasting my time for? Let's, push all the, let's put the ball and the equipment stuff in the right perspective, or make it a piece of the overall and bigger picture. And so a lot more live streams, a lot more discussions on stuff. Riley, I'll probably have you on at some point. I'll put your face on the TV up there if you've got the Zoom application. Quick question, how do I keep my urethane from cracking? Should I get it plugged? I didn't know urethane actually cracked. I've never seen a cracked urethane ball. That's kind of fascinating, actually. Yes, I should probably get it plugged or do something to stop the cracking. So, I thought the USB-C/Surface videos were awesome. Yes, I'd like to make more stuff like that. When I do make the videos, instead of comparing this ball to that ball, or then this ball to this ball, and then this ball to another ball, that was kind of helpful. I did like the way that my Axiom series kind of played out because it taught me stuff about the bowling balls I didn't notice, but I can figure that out in practice instead of making an hour and a half's worth of video where you see the same Axiom footage and the whole thing and comparing it to a bunch of different balls and spending forever making these videos over several frickin' weekends just to come to a conclusion that I could probably come to in 2 hours just practicing. So, you want my ugly? My ugly mug has been on this stuff for years now. So, I put James up there too. So, I mean, realistic. He's not gonna watch this though. So, there's a lot of people that are doing a lot of stuff on YouTube that obviously aren't qualified to do it. So. You know about bowling and about making moves and about and really you're talking to a screen. Just think that you're talking to a screen. So you can just super glue urethane. Yeah. No, we'll get you there eventually, Riley. We'll get you there. So, I mean, I'm so introverted that I used to stutter talking to myself. So, if I can get to the point where I can do this, we're all good. Split screen next week with James. Yes, we are, for those of you who were not here earlier when I said it, James is going to be up on the screen. We're going to be breaking down and dissecting the tournament from last weekend, and I'm sure that I can probably talk Riley into it to get his, if you have the Zoom application. I feel myself wanting to talk like Johnny Lawrence on Cobra Kai. That's some of the funniest parts of Cobra Kai. Is when Johnny is explaining, talking about technology, or I've found this on Facebook. It's an app on my smartphone. Brilliance. So if I can figure out how Zoom works, I think I know how Zoom works. But yeah, I could get you, and especially since you were at the tournament bowling with us on the same pair, you can tell everybody how terrible I was. But just seeing what I was able to see on the 3 or 4 good shots I threw the entire weekend, and what I actually saw when you and James were making a bunch of good shots, and because motive equipment is so different from storm equipment, you played the lanes kind of differently with some different stuff, and even though it's like, okay, well, we all stood left and hooked it, there were a whole bunch of different nuances to how that actually happened. I thought it was kind of interesting how you were able to play the lanes on the doubles tournament on Sunday when the area of the lane that you were playing would make storm stuff kind of boomerang or turn sideways, but because motive seems to be rounder equipment that blends the lane a little bit better, the lane play was a little different, and I think that it's worth talking about. So, what's your opinion on the high road? It's almost 11. No, it's almost 12. It's almost 12. Isn't it? 2008, 2020. Yeah, it's almost 12. So, all right. I'll get it on my PC. Yeah, Zoom. And the cool thing about Zoom is it actually will switch. If you're in a Zoom meeting with several different people, it only has one video feed, but the video feed automatically adjusts, or it goes to whoever's talking. So that makes it a whole lot easier on my end, on the tech side of stuff. Yeah, the Nemesis worked way longer than it should have. That's what I thought. I'm like, how are you playing that far right and playing your break point that far right when James's stuff was boomeranging? So yeah, that's what I found very interesting, and those are those bowling nuances that you just have to get out there and do. So we'll talk about the tournament stuff. We'll talk about why Brad Miller was able to throw an all-road on a 30 mil 43-foot pattern from 4th arrow on the fresh, which makes no sense on paper. But yeah, we could have a nice little conversation. And Riley will probably have us do a test run at some point just to make sure that I don't get on the live stream and screw things up like I have been known to do. But we've been going for almost 2 hours. Sorry if I spoil anything, but Bill O'Neill has to feel great that he outlasted Chris Prather on TV today. So big win for Billy O there. Oh my God. We almost got through the whole. I was getting ready to turn it off right now. Riley, next Saturday at 7 p.m. Man, and I hear the feet and I hear the squeaking. John Schaffer. Schaffer or Schaefer? It's spelled like Schaffer, so that's what I'm going to go with. I heard getting shot with Nerf darts helps improve your mental game. Thank you for the donation. It's greatly appreciated. It goes towards the channel. Also, like I said, I am starting to write a book, which is I'm kind of just in the whining about my life stage right now, but it is kind of important to find out, to go back and look at how I ended up where I ended up and why I can't win anything and all that stuff in general. And then we're going to talk, then I'm going to start using instances or experiences from my life to explain certain things and maybe be able to help everybody else who seems to think it's a lot easier than it actually is. So, long A is in Schaefer. Interesting. Normally, Schaefer is like Schaeffer. Two F's is Schaffer. I'm sorry, but my
4 minutes left on the bike too.
my name is. Oh, you're on the bike. Okay. My name is Rosdahl, but it's pronounced Rosdahl when it should be Rosdahl or Rosdahl.
I get Hello Kitty.
Oh, interesting. Most of the time, yeah, that lost the... Tip's gone. Oh, there it is. Found it. So the people that actually pronounce my name the way that it should be pronounced phonetically have it right, but it's wrong because it's Rosdahl for some reason. It used to have an E in it or something like that.
Yeah, like half of the family has
Yeah.
an E in it.
So yeah, if you say Rosdahl, I'm not.
That's how Siri says it.
Huh?
That's how Siri says it.
Oh yeah, well, Siri. All right, so I got shot with Nerf darts. Yeah. All right. So anyway, we've been on for 2 hours. I've been rambling, and this has been terribly uninteresting, I'm sure. But we're gonna try to, instead of doing ball commercials and farming for views, we're gonna try to help some people out, help you actually accomplish some things on the lanes. I'm gonna try to accomplish some things myself on the lanes instead of donating money repeatedly to half the PBA tour and. The guys from St. Louis and Springfield and all the other people in general that benefit from my money being there, which is not a whole lot of money there, but I'm definitely not scaring anybody off. So, all right, so it's on your calendar. Sweet. We'll figure it out. We'll get the details sorted out. That should be a really good conversation. So next week we had a really interesting pair of tournaments over the weekend. We had a singles tournament on the 30 mil 43-foot Earl Anthony pattern, followed by which was 6 games, followed by an 8-gamer on the house shot, which I'm sure was like 22 or 23 mils. They did an extra head pass, but I couldn't really tell. Hey, Sempatron, you got your ball? Don't hit. This German Shepherd is a tragedy, an absolute tragedy. The clumsiest dog I've ever seen. Ever. So before he knocks the camera down, we are going to talk about, next week we're going to talk about how to line up. So all the things that factor into finding the right spot on the lane to be in the first place. We are going to talk about a little bit about lane surface friction, which heavily influences what went on Saturday on the heavier condition, which didn't actually play, which actually makes it the higher friction lanes makes that really tricky. We're going to talk about some some different ways that we handle transition. And so that's probably, they'll probably take everything. We can skip talking about my Saturday on Earl Anthony. No, we can talk about my Saturday on Earl Anthony when I went spare, gutter spare, gutter spare, like 7 spare, 3 spare, because it's more important, apparently, to not wing the ball than it is to actually knock the pins down. So, thanks everybody for coming out. Everybody's kind of trickling off anyway. We will see you next weekend at 7 p.m. Central, 8 Eastern. Be here or be square, I guess. Thanks everybody for coming out.